This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. This is another very important story to keep an eye on. We have seen these cyber attacks, which are all deliberate cyber attacks. They're preparing people for a total shutdown that they're going to blame on a boogeyman, another country, a man in a factory, a cyber attack. They're telling us year after year after year we could expect one. They're conditioning us for it. We just saw AT&T down for a temporary period of time. We've seen Bank of America down. We've seen McDonald's down. We've seen all these stores and brands down. We saw Facebook down. We saw Instagram down. And now we just saw London Drugs, which is a drugstore chain in Canada, operates across BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, Canada. Nearly 80 stores are now shut down until further notice because of a cyber attack. Now, what's the motive of the cyber attack? Well, it depends who you ask. The motive of the boogeyman, of course, that they tell us is doing it, there's never a motive. But what's the motive for the government? Well, the motive for the government is the Great Reset, to start things fresh, to shut things down, and then bring everything back online with digital IDs, and of course, full-on compliance from society, who will be begging for everything to go back to the way that it was. And it's really important to think about this. And this is something that's talked about on the website. There's a forum for it for people out there who are trying to figure out how to prepare for a grid shutdown. It's about more than just food and water. You need to be prepared with other things, medical kits, supplies in regards to any type of antibiotic you might think you might need in the future. Antibiotics are always good to have stored up, whatever your take is on it, or natural remedies to cure things. And also, of course, any prescription drug you may be on. Now, this is something they've done, right? Deliberately. They've gotten everybody, pretty much everybody out there on some type of prescription drug, whether it's blood pressure, whether it's anxiety. They've gotten people dependent on it. So think about that from a control aspect. When they shut things off, people won't be able to get their pharmaceuticals. And we've seen predictive programming in many of the zombie apocalypse-like movies like World War Z, where people are running to the CVS or the Walgreens, etc. So this is what happened in Canada with London Drugs, which is now closed until further notice, where people are not able to get their prescriptions.
The doors are locked and store closure signs are seen hanging outside of London Drugs Monday afternoon, following a cybersecurity attack that impacted all stores in Western Canada. The same scene at all of London Drugs' nearly 80 locations in Western Canada, closed indefinitely, out of an abundance of caution. The company giving little details on what type of cybersecurity attack or when it might be resolved, but say there is no reason to believe that customer or employee data has been impacted.
There's no way to really know whether your data is truly secure or not.
This cybersecurity program chair at NATE says while London Drugs' privacy statement says they have security measures that are appropriate for the type of information being held, it's unclear what steps are actually taken to protect it.
So is it a lack of encryption? Do they have a lack of security resources surrounding the data that allows somebody else to get access to it? We just don't know that. So we can never be 100% sure of, is our data safe?
As for customers needing a prescription filled, London Drugs says pharmacists are continuing to support any customers with urgent pharmacy needs, originally telling customers to call their local store to make arrangements, though many taking to social media saying they've been unable to get through.
Thank you for calling London Drugs. Due to operational issues, we are closed until further notice.
We've tried calling one location multiple times, but the call dropped before we could speak to anyone.
Please hold while your call is transferred to the pharmacy.
In a Monday afternoon update, London Drugs says they had to temporarily shut down their phone lines due to its investigation, saying pharmacy staff are on site at all locations to help those with urgent pharmacy needs. It's unclear at this time when London Drugs will reopen to the public. Customers not needing urgent pharmacy assistance getting turned away Monday afternoon.
I'm not super concerned about it.
It's somewhat of an inconvenience, but it's not a crisis for me.
London Drugs says they immediately took measures to protect its network and data and are working with cybersecurity experts to conduct a forensic investigation. In Edmonton, Laura Kraus, City News.
And again, if you're not familiar with this, A lot of people out there started kind of seeing some of the signs with the Facebook and Instagram shutdowns. They started seeing some of the signs with the AT&T shutdown. We've all, obviously, who've been following my channel for a while, we've all been talking about this for years now. They've been programming people and conditioning them into accepting this. This is what all those movies are about. Those apocalyptic films are conditioning, and also to condition the masses on how to behave when this stuff ends up going down. This would be nothing more than your government pulling the plug. That's all that this would be. And the World Economic Forum, look no further than them, look no further than your FBI, the CIA. They're constantly telling you there's going to be a major cyber attack. They don't say we're going to prevent it, which is what our job is supposed to be. That's our government's not out there going, hey, we have all these big, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. Our job is to make sure this doesn't happen. They're telling you it's imminent. They're telling you it's going to happen. They don't tell you even who's responsible. They just go, well, it could be Russia, it could be China, it could be the Tooth Fairy. We don't know, but it's happening. That's because they're planning on doing it. Here are the clips from the World Economic Forum telling you it's the next big thing, and this is what the plan has been for Agenda 2030. It started with an outbreak. The next phase of this is going to be a grid shutdown. Look.
Global Security Outlook Report 2023. This is a result of research in collaboration with the forum's communities and our partner Accenture, in which we've interviewed and sought input from over 300 executives globally. The most striking finding that we found is that 93% of cyber leaders and 86% of cyber business leaders believe that the geopolitical instability makes a catastrophic cyber event likely in the next 2 years.
But still, pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services. Our society as a whole would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
So these are the same people who obviously have been talking about before the outbreak, a great reset. All of the globalists have a plan for a great reset. When things go offline, they'll bring you back online eventually. You'll be more compliant to what they want. You'll be more compliant to equity, equality, inclusion. You'll be more compliant to digital currency. You'll be more compliant to a digital ID after they run you through the mud for a while with a grid shutdown. Because one, you won't have food, you won't have water. Okay, talk about a lifestyle nuking for all of us who are used to having electricity. These are all things that they know, and they wear you down psychologically, that when they bring it back, they'll be able to say, look, well, everything's back, but this is the way it's got to be now. To prevent cyber attacks in the future, you're going to need this, you're going to need that, you're going to have to comply to this, and everybody will go along with it. So they've been telling us about it for a while, and this is really important to know, like I said earlier, because this is a drugstore, we have to think in terms of that. You have to have supplies on, whatever you're into. Like some people out there they're like, I won't take a Tylenol, I won't do this, I do natural remedies. Whatever it is, if you know natural remedies to lower your blood pressure, these are all things that people should have stored up along with food and water. Okay, medical kits, just the basic stuff, right? Bandages, all those types of things that you take for granted that you think, I'll never be in a situation where I would need that. Well, you might not need it when the grid goes down, but somebody around you might. So it's good to have those types of things because you're not going to be able to get anything. It's not just about going to the drugstore to pick up your prescription, but you also won't even have Tylenol or access to bandages and those types of things. So those are things I always recommend. And again, on the website, you could talk and go into more detail about ways you can prepare for this. But the retail and pharmacy chain London Drugs says it's the victim of a cybersecurity incident. And it has shut its stores down across Western Canada until further notice. The retailer, which is headquartered in BC, says the closure is out of an abundance of caution and that it immediately took measures to counter the attack once it was discovered. At this time, we have no reason to believe that customer or employee data has been impacted. So think about this. Even if somebody hacked in, how would they know somebody hacked in? Somebody hacked into what? Somebody hacked into your database and did what? Looked up people's addresses? So you shut down the store so that people couldn't pick up their prescription drugs? Huh? I mean, we're not even talking about a cyber attack where they've shut the power off in every store. They're just saying there's a data breach. Data breaches occur all the time, okay? Data breaches occur because, of course, The data the government is collecting, and they always talk about data, is you. So there's always data breaches, whatever your purchases are, whatever you're doing on the internet, the government's watching, monitoring, and people out there just don't seem to care anymore. But in regards to this store getting, what is the motive, right? Shouldn't we always ask the question, what's the motive of the cybersecurity guy? What did he want to shut it down so he can go and rob it? Did he want to shut it down because he wanted the Viagra there? Or what did he shut it down for? What was the... He was sitting somewhere and he's like, I'm going to go after London Drugs. They're like, oh, don't you want to go after Walgreens? No, London Drugs. It's a small supply chain in Canada. I'd like to cyber attack some Canadians and, find out where they're, just get access to their credit. What? Huh? Now, some people will say, well, they picked that because it's an easier thing to hack than hacking a big corporation. Look, it's a drugstore. Okay. It's a branch off of a conglomerate anyway. It's not just some independent little retailer. So they never give you a motive for these cyber attacks. They just, again, that's what I was talking about in previous videos. The first thing you think of is this image of, a guy in a room with a hoodie on who's hacking in there. This is all he's doing day and night, right? Nobody knows how he pays rent. He pays rent by scamming people. Right? All these stories, again, go back to a digital ID. And the only way they're really going to get people to comply with all the stuff they want is to shut everything off. And of course, when we talk about depopulation being one of their agendas, there's no better way for them to depopulate than to shut the grid down, because people will not last very long. We talk about people poisoning themselves, yeah, but a grid shutdown would really wipe off a good portion of the planet. There's dehydration. You know how long you can last without water? Not very long. Couple of days if you're lucky, not even. Okay, how long can you last without food? Not very long. How many people have food stored up for a year? Nobody does, okay? So once it's down, you think, okay, well, the power, think about how it feels if the power goes out for 2 days, right? It feels like a long period of time. And people are like, okay, well, I'll go through my pantry. I've got some stuff in the freezer and I'll take it out and maybe I could put it, if it's cold out, you can put it outside. These are all things that people don't even think about, because they're so used to it coming back on. But think about a week without it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Think about 2 months, 3 months, right? Now, it's not going to be a power outage. It's a grid shutdown for years on end, but even an extended period of months, okay, will end up depopulating a lot of the population around the earth, because most of these people don't have a clue, right? There's a lot of these young kids out there don't even realize that without the power, the water doesn't work. There's no electricity, so your sink isn't going to work, right? You're going to, and if you have city water, okay, then maybe you have a little bit of a better chance. If you have well water, you need electricity, you need a well pump. These aren't things that people think about. And all the, the supplies that most people have stored up are only for a few days anyway, and that's because most people can't afford to store this stuff up. It's not cheap, and it's not something that people want to spend their money on. They don't want to, they're like, oh, should I buy a car or should I get a year's worth of food supply? Right? You weigh the pros and cons. You're like, I guess I'll take my chances until, of course, the chance comes. So they tell you that there's no reason to believe that customer employee data has been impacted. And people out there are always fearful about their data being impacted. It's already impacted. If it's out there on the internet, the government has it, is monitoring it, and is keeping it, and it's like, what are you really afraid of? Well, you're afraid of what they tell you to be afraid of, which is a guy in a factory who's going to drain your bank account to zero. But the government's the one who's going to be doing that, and then blaming it on the guy they've been conditioning you into thinking is the one doing it. That's the plan. That's what the Great Reset is, okay? You think people are going to willingly go along with giving up all the money they have or all the assets they have? Yeah, we understand the people out there who don't work, who don't want to work, who don't have much. They'll love what's coming because they look at other people and they hate them because they're successful. The people who are successful or even have somewhat of success, they don't even realize that even if you make minimum wage and you're home playing video games and all that stuff, they plan on taking all of the stuff that you have. Okay, communist society, you own nothing. You don't even own, your Super Mario brother. You don't own anything. You don't own anything in a communist society. No private property, right? And this is what it is. This is why we always see the memes, right? You'll own nothing and be happy. And these people out there laugh about it. They don't understand what communism is. They think communism means that, oh, well, your neighbor's got a fancy car. Well, he won't have it anymore. And they go, yay, great. But they don't realize that none of us will have anything. We'll have no resource. We'll have nothing. And these big corporations will have it all. They'll have access to all the resources, have access to all the food. And everybody's like, good, let them have it. Until you realize the real enemy that you've had your whole life hasn't been your neighbor who has different political ideologies. Your enemy has been the American corporation. because they're the ones who have been using propaganda against you. They're the ones who have been manipulating your life, making you angry, giving you anxiety and stress, dumping chemicals on you from the sky, putting those towers up around you that are pumping radiation at your brain like a microwave. Those are the ones responsible for it, okay? So when they tell you about this story, the things to remember specifically is that the boogeyman they keep speaking of is the government. And what they're doing is conditioning you and preparing you for this, and it's coming. So the retailer and the pharmacy chain, London Drugs, goes on to say that on their social media posts that customers were encouraged to call their pharmacist if they had urgent needs. A statement on Monday afternoon said the retailer had deactivated their phone lines as they continued to investigate the cyber attack. So you know what I mean? So even with the cyber attack, why couldn't the pharmacist be at the pharmacy and get, because the computer's out. Oh, okay, right? So everything's just shut off. And you could see, then they monitor how people respond to this, okay? And you might say, well, it's a small chain. Well, they're doing it in all the countries, doing it all over, and they're watching how people respond. What are they posting on social media? Is anyone breaking into the store? What are people doing? It's behavioral control, and they're monitoring your behavior as they do these test runs, shutting things off, right? When they shut social media off, when they shut Instagram off for a day or half a day, people were losing their minds, right? They went on to Twitter to post about it, right? My Facebook's down. AT&T was down from 3 in the morning to 9 in the morning. And like I had said when that happened, every single media outlet had a story about it at 5 o'clock in the morning because it was fed to them beforehand because they knew that it was coming. And then they wanted to watch you. And then you see things like Leave the World Behind. And people out there are like, isn't that weird that it's happening at the same time? Oh, no, it's not weird. Because the same people who produced Leave the World Behind, Barry Sortoro and Big Mike, are in bed with the same exact people who are going to be responsible for doing this. So they're just telling you ahead of time what's actually going to come. So London Drugs confirmed that their stores are now closed. They said that they're going to, they've retained a third party to contain and fix the problem. And people out there don't even realize what the problem is. That's what's craziest about it. When these things happen, people out there just look around. They don't get it. They're like, oh, my data. They don't even know what that means. They're like, what, my address? What, some guy in a factory in Russia wants your address to do what? What's he want to do? Come over and play badminton? I mean, what do you think he wants to do? Right? This is the government conditioning for a massive grid shutdown. That's all they've been conditioning people for. And a lot of people out there don't realize it's the next phase of this. If the goal is the Great Reset, if you listen to the stuff that I talk about, right? Everybody out there, whether you found my channel recently or not, has heard of the Great Reset. Okay, that's the plan. So then it's like, how do you think they're going to get you to reset? You think that they're going to get you to go, okay, I'm in, I want to reset. That you're going to just willingly reset? These are the things that have to happen for the reset. Okay, they have to change your life. They have to nuke your life, right? They create an outbreak. What do they do with that? Well, think about how everybody switched and went online with everything. Now people do Zoom calls day in and day out. They work from home, right? Enslavement in your home. Think about not just how many people ended up poisoning themselves. Think about all the things that came out of that. How many small business owners went out of business? How much of the infrastructure got taken down? A lot of it was compromised because a lot of businesses couldn't keep up with the online infrastructure that they want, right? Now you talk about the next phase of this. You talk about bank accounts going to zero. Everybody's money's online. How do you think your bank account's going to go to zero without a grid shutdown? Think if your grid, if the grid is off for 2 days and it comes back on, you'd expect your money to be in the bank. If the grid's off for a year and it comes back on, are you going to be clamoring for your money that's in the bank, or are you just going to accept when they tell you there's nothing in there now? And just be happy that suddenly there's electricity and lights and showers and running water? Of course you will. That's how they reset things. So they're conditioning you with stories like this, and they tell you ahead of time. That's what that clip is in the beginning that I showed you. They keep telling you at the World Economic Forum, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And the when they're talking about is when they decide to do it. And it's coming before 2030. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always, and your families.